welcome to Making Sense of Coronavirus. This is a series of short interviews where I sit down with people and talk about life in a coronavirus world. And we discuss what hope and what help there is for us as we live through these days of global pandemic. Whoever you are, wherever you're watching, you're more than welcome to join us. This week I had the wonderful privilege of sitting down with David and Honor Martin and talking about what life has been like for them in lockdown. David and Honor are both working from home down in Dublin, and they've got 4 children who are schooling from home. And here's what they had to say as we sat down together. David and Honor, thank you for joining us. David and Honor are down in Dublin, both working from home with 4 children. Tell us, David and Honor, tell us a little bit about what you're doing in lockdown at the moment. Who's in lockdown with you? What's lockdown been like over the last month or so?
Well, we're in lockdown with our 4 primary school age children, ranging from 12 down to 5, 2 boys and 2 girls. They're all at the same primary school, so when the schools were closed, they're obviously all home together, all with bags full of books, and eager teachers sending lots of work every day. So the weeks have gone very quickly so far. They're given schoolwork every day and they can upload it and chat to their teachers online. So they've had quite a lot of work to do, but it's been good to have the routine with that. And then just trying to find our way into getting into a routine, and then having Easter, and now dealing with really, I suppose, the uncertainty of when they'll go back to school, and if indeed that will be before June. So we're just taking it day by day, but as I say, the days go quickly as well.
I think the novelty kind of has worn off at this stage though as well. So at the start, it was quite exciting. They were called into assembly actually by their principal, and they were told by their principal they weren't allowed to react to the news that they were being sent home early for the foreseeable future. So that was all fun and games really at the beginning. The novelty now though, having come through the Easter holiday time, back into work, the usual groan in the morning from all of them in their own particular way is that they just don't want to do any more homework. It's very strange. It's very strange for us all, but I think as parents, appreciating that it can be very, very strange for the children too is important because we may have lists of homeworks to get through and we want to make sure they're staying up with their schoolwork, but it is a whole new world for them too, and just helping them to navigate and grasp that is a challenge in itself.
And what are things like in your neighbourhoods here in North Dublin and near the sea? What's the kind of tone in the neighbourhood if you see people out and about and your 2-kilometre walk?
And socially distanced, of course.
Yes, yeah.
Keeping up that 2-meter distance.
You have a stick with you, or?
Yes, indeed. Look, we are very, very privileged to live in a part of Dublin that does, as you've said, have the beach on our doorstep. And thankfully it is within 2 kilometres of our travelling restrictions, so we can make it on to the beach, and we try and build that into the routine each day, just to get a bit of fresh air for the children and a bit of space for us all instead of living on top of one another. Neighbourhood wise, it's been great. The weather has been fabulous. That's been I suppose a real blessing in the midst of it all. We can get out, we can from a distance say hello to our neighbours. We have one particular couple across the road who are very elderly or very worried, there's been, I think they themselves have received quite a lot of support from the surrounding neighbours as well. So there's been a great community spirit, and I think as time develops, there's opportunity to put in place more little routine meetups, just even with the immediate neighbours. So Honor was meeting with 2 of the wives on Saturday morning just for a quick cup of tea, just to catch up and perhaps to talk about something different than coronavirus. So it's been it's been I suppose, a surprising change of events where our neighbours, we are seeing one another a little bit more, and being able to share lives rather than simply running from one appointment to another.
And so you're 6 of you in the one house, all working together. So schooling and working and all on top of each other. Tell us a little bit about that, what it's like to work from home with kind of children all doing school at home, and the pressure. What's the impact that's had on your family life? What are the particular challenges, any particular joys and encouragements?
I think certainly there's been the opportunity to spend more time together. I mean, our children have no choice but to play with each other. Of course, they still fight sometimes, but it has been an opportunity for them to actually, their relationships to grow deeper in a way that they wouldn't have normally, because they would be out with friends and out at activities all the time. And actually, children don't have that much time at home together when you look at a week, whereas they've had lots and lots of time, and that has largely been a very positive thing. In terms of work, I suppose David works at home maybe half the week anyway, or maybe just less than half the week, so he's used to that. He wears industrial ear protectors anyway, so he had those, so he can go into his study and put those on and try and block it out. And then if I need to work, we just need to tag team and figure out our day and see who's going to work and when, and then do the children's work. And then obviously we have the TV is a great babysitter as well when we need that. There's Disney Plus now, which is saved many parents. That they can do things like that as well, and the older ones can read. So we're managing, but it's just every day can look a little bit different with our routine. But the kids, they can go outside in the garden and entertain themselves, and they've been pretty good about it actually, in terms of just that juggling and us needing to do things as well.
I think like we said before, it's just learning to appreciate that it's a new rhythm for them as much as it is for us, and trying to help them really try to appreciate that there are different demands, and they can't always get necessarily what they would like. They can't see their friends just whenever they want, and things like that. It's good as well, I think, because the children, even though I work maybe just less than half a week at home anyway, they get to see what my work involves a little bit more, and we get to talk about that. We get to share life at a different level almost. And that is great. There are times when perhaps there are too many questions, and as parents we run out of patience with all of that. But actually, to see their different sides of their personalities that we may not necessarily always get to see, for them to get to see different sides of our life working and asking questions about that, that's been helpful. There's one of the funny things at the moment is we're trying to learn how to be more self-sufficient. So the thing I'm trying to avoid most at the moment is having my hair cut. Honor managed to commandeer a pair of head shearers for haircuts. So our two sons have had their haircuts, and I have managed thus far to avoid it. But yeah, it's great. We get to see different sides of one another, and get to learn how to accommodate and appreciate one another a little bit more.
Great. And Honor, as well as trying to persuade your husband to get his hair cut, you've been taking kind of a lot of the burden of homeschooling, is that right? What's that been like for you? Obviously, you're not trained as a teacher or anything else. Has that been kind of a bit of feeling your way around, or what's that been like?
Yeah, I mean, that can be challenging. I suppose at the beginning, the children were so keen that they were given some work home initially, and they nearly had it all done within a day. And then obviously now we're at this stage now, I don't know how many weeks in, but they're struggling every day to have the motivation. The other challenge is there are 4 sets of work to do that have to be, have to open the iPad, share iPads, upload it. they've videos and interactive things to do online. So that the challenge is just really splitting myself in four and trying to supervise that. I suppose we've had some helpful rules in that, where we try and get started at a reasonable, before 9 o'clock in the morning, and get a little bit done, do some exercise at 9 with Joe Wicks. I'm sure everybody's heard of Joe Wicks now, online exercise, and then back to it. And the rule is, if it's not done by lunchtime, that's it. We don't have to do it, because I think they're under, they feel the pressure. They see this list of work in the morning, and that can be quite daunting for them when we work through it. It's good to have the routine, but it can be challenging. And we're now taking a day off a week where we're just saying we're not using the iPads, we're not using the schoolwork, and I'm trying to just do something with the four of them, because really I'm facilitating schoolwork and I'm not homeschooling. I think there's a big difference. And I think facilitating schoolwork is quite difficult with 4 children, whereas I'm not saying homeschooling's easy, but I think it's more directed into, groups of the 2 older ones and the 2 younger ones, or doing something with the 4 of them together. We started that last week, and that was certainly very helpful, and they really enjoyed that, and led to a wider experience. We could explore things more rather than having to do this page of maths and that page of Irish and this page of English. So it's challenging. It's challenging for the teachers too, of course. They're in uncharted territory. They're working really hard from home, and they're trying their best, absolutely, and they're never going to please every parent. Every parent and every home have very different situations, but I think it's just, we're trying to sort of relax it a little bit now, keep them ticking over, because we want them to emerge from this, I suppose, with their mental health intact rather than their ABCs intact, really. So trying to just relax a little bit on that and focus on the fun, and just keep it going a little bit. But I find that hard to relax, because I want to tick every box. So that's my challenge anyway.
I think you find it helpful talking to other parents as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Most people are in different boats, so there's perhaps 2 full-time working parents at home now. There can be an awful lot of strain and stress put on different families because of that, and I think just sharing the burden and talking things through, and realizing actually the important thing is to do our best with what we've got available, the time we've got available, the abilities we've got available. I'm certainly very thankful that Honor's sharing the burden of carrying the burden of homeschooling, because I think our children would go backwards if I was responsible for teaching them. So there's I think an awful lot of stress and strain put on parents now, and really you've got to make the best of a very complicated and challenging situation.
And you're both Christians. Tell us a little bit about what being a Christian, how that has changed the way you face some of these challenges. Maybe there's been a lot of joys in the midst of the challenges as well, but tell us a little bit about what that's like as a Christian facing these challenges.
I suppose this was a situation that just surprised everybody. No one was prepared for this. No one was expecting this. It happened obviously very quickly after Christmas, and really none of us could have foreseen the situation that we're in now, and indeed what the future is going to look like. And I think, speaking to people, there's a lot of fear about the future. Obviously, we're concerned about the future. We can be anxious about it, and rightly so. But at the same time, I think the fear can be quite crippling for many, many people. I suppose how we look at it as Christians is that God is in control. God created this world and created everyone who lives in it and cares for them deeply. God knew this was going to happen. And I suppose knowing that God is in control gives us hope. People talk about hope a lot, and that's certainly what people need. I suppose as Christians, we would firmly believe that our only hope is in Jesus Christ and knowing Him. And that hope is what keeps us going. And our relationship with Jesus is what certainly our focus is on, and what we would be pointing our family to as well. And that we don't need to fear, because we are trusting in Jesus through this.
Yeah, in the context of homeschooling, I think bringing a Christian perspective to it as well, we're trying to be conscious of the fact that whilst we want to see our children improve academically, every parent wants that, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing really is for our children to develop a character that loves Jesus. And that means dealing a lot with heart issues. So it's in some ways been a great opportunity to deal with those topics more regularly. And those are really difficult topics, and we very often feel out of our depth. It's certainly exposes our inabilities as parents, but as a family, then we get to collectively call out upon God to continue to shape and fashion us into the likeness of Jesus. So there's wonderful opportunities there, and that's not easily done, and you do have to be deliberate about it. We miss it on many an occasion, even if it's simply trying to pray before we begin in the morning, or to pray after an evening meal. That doesn't always happen, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity to really begin to understand how we can develop ourselves as Christians and seek to help the children grow as well. And also, I think one of the big things, and it's surprising what children bring up and what they actually want to talk about, but it does bring clarity on what's really important. And children are more happy, I think, or able to discuss the topic of death than perhaps we realize, or even as adults are able to ourselves. And so even around the kitchen table, when perhaps they overhear the headlines and they themselves get worried, and perhaps they're talking about death, it's a wonderful opportunity really to think about the really important things in life. We've had to say, look, nobody can escape death. But as Christians, of course, we believe that there is one who has overcome it. And Easter, of course, just having been a few weeks ago, was a wonderful opportunity to talk about how God has overcome death by raising his son, the Lord Jesus, from the grave. So, as Christians, there are wonderful opportunities, and this whole situation has been deeply unsettling for everyone, Christians included. But I think in God's wisdom, that's maybe exactly what we all need, because we all, I think, need to realize that the heart of wisdom is to number our days, to realize that we're only here for a short time, and we need to prioritize the important things, which is knowing that God is there, that he has demonstrated his love for us. And the wise thing for us all to do really is to seek to grow in our knowledge of that salvation and treasure it for ourselves.
Well, it definitely is something it's awakening us to something, isn't it? It's kind of, we're feeling our weakness, our kind of trust in the human being to keep the show on the road has been shaken quite a lot, and actually have something to turn to as a hope that's solid, that will last beyond death, is something to explore, isn't it, and to stand on.
Yeah, wonderful. It's wonderful. It doesn't make you immune from the worry and the uncertainties. We certainly have those ourselves, but to have that unshakable hope that even the worst thing that can happen to us in this world will actually be for our good. So even in dying, our faith is turned to sight, is a wonderful, wonderful comfort and strengthening truth to hold on to.
That's wonderful. I think that's a great note to finish there on. David Noel, thank you so much for joining us and for sparing your time. And we wish you all the best with dividing yourselves in 4 and the homeschooling and everything else. But thank you very much. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us for this interview. The plan is that we'll have more of these interviews coming up in the weeks to come as we talk about what life is like in a coronavirus world and discover what hope and what help there is. The plan is we'll be talking to lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds and situations, but all living in the same world. If you'd like to explore a little bit more, or if you'd like to speak to someone, there's lots of resources and there's an opportunity to contact us on our website. And you can do that by going to www.swanlumbarchurches.wordpress.com. You're also very welcome to join us on a Sunday morning. We have a live stream Sunday morning service at 10:30 every Sunday, and the details of that are on our website. But thank you so much for tuning in, and look forward to speaking to you again soon. Goodbye.